Sonic the Continuation Issue 0, as opposed to 1. For some reason, I have a really uneasy feeling about this comic. Maybe it's because it's not Sonic the Comic Online. So 1, how's it going to keep up with the continuity of that instead of contradicting it? Is Sonic the Comic Online really done? Because it still says that the next issue is coming soon. So is this presumptuous? Or maybe it's because it's on DeviantArt like Sonic Retold was. Either way, I'm worried, but maybe it won't be so bad. After all, it has Robotnik on its cover, so maybe it's picking up from where 275 left off, where a virus called Robotnik was stranded on Drac. We start out in Aquatic Ruin at night, where Metal Sonic is fighting with Sonic, who looks intimidated and is frustrated at himself for it. So right away, who made this Metal Sonic? Grimer? Are we finally gonna see Grimer get what he deserved for ruining Sonic's reputation before? Sonic spin dashes at Metal Sonic thinking about how this wasn't how he wanted to spend his Saturday, but I'm just wondering how he escaped Metal Sonic's grip on his neck. It's like Metal Sonic let go of his neck just to be nice. Then we cut to a news reporter who's supposedly the Fleetway Sally, but it looks absolutely nothing like her, so I don't know how anyone thought that was acceptable. Well, I like the text on the bottom of the panel. I like that the writer put the effort into thinking what to put on there for a news bulletin. She explains that earlier this week, over 100 zone leaders met in Metropolis to discuss a proposal for an international council to oversee planetary affairs. So basically the United Nations. It's bizarre that after all that time of zone leaders ruling instead of Robotnik, it took them until now to decide to do this. Wouldn't this have been a thing before Robotnik took over the world? How backwards was Mobius in technology that they didn't have United Nations until now? I like that there's a line at the bottom of the panel saying that Fabian Bane's comeback tour was cancelled. It's a shame I don't know why. Then we see people protesting the not United Nations because they're scared it'll be the end of zone autonomy and result in the world being ruled by one government again. I did have that worry. Ever since the zone leader thing started, I always had that worry that the whole every zone is a country thing wouldn't last because other zones would want to take over the zones around them. So Mobius would just get bigger countries like we have anyways and lose part of what makes it unique. And this looks like the first step towards that to the untrained eye. A more legitimate point is that if the Robotnik virus ever came back to Mobius, he could take over the United Zone Alliance himself and make it a dictatorship. It just provides an easy way for him to take over the world by taking over one position, whereas before, every zone had its own leader, so he couldn't take over the world right away by replacing any one leader. I like this page. It helps develop and flesh out the world more as something that feels real when we see stuff like this. And this is all taking place earlier in the same day that Sonic was having his fight. Hopefully I'll get an explanation for where that Metal Sonic came from then. In any other continuity, you could have a fight with Metal Sonic, no big deal, but in Fleetway, at this point, it has to be Grimer who made him since he made the Metallix. And the only Robotnik left is on track at this point, so it'd be more convoluted if he made him. So it creates a mystery that Sonic has to solve by finding Grimer. Wait, what? Grimer was recently arrested? When did that happen? Why the fuck would that happen off screen? That's really anticlimactic. I was just saying that Sonic needed to find him after he'd sent Metal Sonic after him. I at least like the line below her, but still, what the fuck? Grimer was safely in another dimension the last time we ever saw him. He told Sonic that he was in another dimension where he'd never be able to find him. So I guess he just came out of the safety of that place to try to take over the world or get materials to do so and got caught. That was uncharacteristically stupid of him. This is the same guy who had the most brilliant and genre-savvy evil plan in the entire franchise by ruining Sonic's reputation for an entire arc. Why would he ever be stupid enough to leave his hiding place before it'd be safe? Then Knuckles complains to Porker that he can't believe Robotnik slipped away, and Porker says they were distracted at the time. See, this is what I was really worried about with this comic. Is this trying to take place before issue 276, where Eggman reverted to being Kintovor, or after, which would be common sense? In which case, Knuckles has to be talking about the virus avatar of Robotnik in cyberspace, which Knuckles and Porker wouldn't know about. But to be fair, maybe they don't know about Eggman reverting to Kintovor either. I just hope this comic takes place after the most recent issue in STC Online, which would be common sense, because it'd be so stupid if it didn't. It wouldn't feel like a proper continuation at that point, because you'd have to choose which one is canon to you. This, or STC Online, which obviously sounds like a more professional title right away. Then after Porker reminds Knuckles that Robotnik had gone insane and seemed almost broken a while ago, as if that's new information, Sonic shows up to Knuckles and shows confidence that he could beat him if he ever shows up again. He did. In issue 276. Though I was disappointed about how confusing it was there, since he clearly shrank away, and yet when he did show up again, there was no mention of him going to a microverse and coming out of it. So I was right to be worried about this comic then. Well, at least I'll get to see another interpretation of how Sonic found Eggman again after issue 275, because we kinda needed that. Sonic says that he's here because he missed the thinking and wants to see the thing come back up. And to my confusion, it turns out it's the floating island that it sank. So it sank in issue 275? I guess because the Dracons attacked it. I hope this isn't trying to take place after the end of the Adventure adaptation, because that'd be really stupid. Sonic the Comic Online already covered that. And perfectly too. But here, while Knuckles is saying that the floating island can take more punishment than that, he's not reminding Porker that it sank before and was fine, and Porker's worried that it's in pieces. This is the problem with trying to make a comic continuation of something with continuity to it. It can be confusing really easily if it contradicts things, and then it's harder to take seriously because it feels sloppy, instead of caring about doing the best it can. At least we finally get to see Sonic telling Knuckles that he saw him in the ancient past. But Knuckles is asking why he's still alive now. So it's official. There's no reason to take this comic seriously. Because Sonic the Comic Online clearly explained why he's still alive now with the Vichima story. So this is just its own thing. A what-if scenario. An alternate universe that has nothing to do with the actual canon. Alright then, that's interesting too. I just wish it told me which issue it was picking up from at the start, because everyone who really likes Sonic the Comic will obviously assume that this continues off Sonic the Comic Online. No one would ever assume otherwise. I mean, it's called Sonic the Comic Online, so anyone who is searching for more issues of Sonic the Comic would probably search for that title, because, like, well, why wouldn't it be continuing on the internet? By ignoring STC Online, despite all of its praise from fans, the writer implies he thinks that his ideas for a continuation are superior, and nothing about STC Online should be acknowledged. I guess because it's a fan continuation, but then the exact same dismissal could be applied to this too. It's a fan continuation, not the real thing. It's a Sonic Retold situation all over again. The writer can't just be humble about it and just be making a continuation of their own and that's it, because that'd be too good to be true. Instead, he has to have an ego and actually think their continuation is superior. Which would be fine if it really was, but chances are it's not. Anyways, since Knuckles wants to find out about the ancient past, Tails is checking out the Dracon stronghold on Flicky Island. You mean Flicky's Island. See what I mean about alternate universe? Sure, the people in universe could have renamed it off screen, but it still contradicts canon without an in-universe explanation right there. And it gets worse from here. And Amy is checking out Aquatic Ruin Zone. What, underwater? I guess she has a scuba suit. Knuckles and Sonic plan to go to the sunken floating island, and Porker asks if one emerald will be enough as Knuckles is holding the gray one. Knuckles says it'll have to be enough, and away from their chamber, the Chaos Emeralds can only be kept stable in the North Cave. Okay, I don't remember Knuckles having the gray emerald to himself at the end of the SA1 adaptation. I remember Knuckles ejecting all the emeralds from the chamber when the island sank, and then Chaos got a hold of all of them, and then he was defeated. Porker decides to begin remote energy transfer as he stands in front of some device with the gray emerald on its pedestal. Then Big the Cat sees a beam of light come out of the ocean, and it creates a tidal wave for some reason that moves him around in his canoe. I'm not sure that a beam of light would do that. Also, why isn't Chaos the fish with them? He clearly landed next to Big at the end of the SC1 adaptation. So clearly he was intended to be with Big after that. See what I mean about this can't be taken seriously? If you're going to contradict the canon that much, there's no point whatsoever to trying to make this a continuation that tries to resolve plot points from the canon then. So this comic would be better off making totally new stories that have nothing to do with the plot threads from canon. This could have had potential, but like if it was totally episodic. Then Porker says they didn't think it would actually work, and Knuckles is happy to see the floating island intact, as it just magically resurfaces from the sea the instant that Porker uses a gray emerald he shouldn't have on a completely undescribed arbitrary device. Okay, that doesn't exactly impress me. Sonic the Comic Online spent multiple issues showing the genuine consequences of the floating island being trapped underwater. The heroes had to go underwater in submarines to get to it. It turned out that the force field it was famous for created an air bubble around it, which made perfect sense. It reminded me of Atlantinopolis. It was confusing how it resurfaced there too. I guess the Guardian robots have levitation powers, but at least it was easier to swallow that the Guardian robots would know how to resurface the island. Not Porker, who's very much a newbie to Angel Island stuff. But then they retconned it that Porker resurfaced the island anyways, without showing us how he did it. The point is, since I have no idea how Porker's device works, or even what the hell it's supposed to be, this isn't a very satisfying resolution to the plot thread. He just puts the emerald in some undescript, confusing device, and the island immediately rises from the ocean. Just because it's a magic emerald doesn't mean it feels satisfying to have it be able to do literally whatever the plot demands. It's not like they literally put the emerald on the island, in its chamber, which would justify rising again because the emerald being in its chamber is why it's able to float in the first place. Therefore, the heroes need to go there with the emeralds from Chaos for it to make sense. Why are the emeralds back in the Chaos chamber after the Chaos fight? Wouldn't all the heroes pick them up after that and have them? Or did Super Sonic absorb all of them and then they went to the Chaos chamber after he got fused with Sonic just to be nice? It'd make more sense if actual technology did this by, physically lifting up the island from the bottom of the sea. Like it'd have some metal floor thing below it that would lift it up. But again, them going to the island with submarines and going to its Chaos chamber makes way more sense considering what we know about why the island's always floating. And that's why STC Online is better. The only good thing I can say about this extremely rushed and lazy plot thread resolution is, I wish that the plot threads were resolved as fast and archy. As long as the resolution made sense, I don't think I would mind if Antoine woke up from the coma in one panel. Archie takes forever to resolve its plot threads, but this is the opposite extreme, where it feels like there's no effort at all, both in-universe and from the writer. I mean, the idea of use a magic emerald in a magic device to do what the plot demands sounds like it would have taken just 3 seconds to think of. You know what that just reminded me of? The explanation for the Genesis wave in Worlds Collide, which is exactly that, and is just as lazy and stupid as it sounds. Knuckles expects me to believe that it'll be months before the magical floating island will be able to fly again, even though it flies because of the Chaos Emeralds in it, use their magical power in the Chaos Chamber, so no amount of damage to the island should have them unable to do that for it. Even Pender's made more sense. He wouldn't have written this. The island floated because of the Chaos Emeralds. This story sucks. Seriously, how do you look at that line and not realize how ridiculous it is in STC? I figured this would be a negative review from the start, but now I'm sure of it. There's no way you can take this seriously after that. Because the writer made this panel and didn't think it was stupid. Even casual Sonic fans only familiar with the games would still think it was stupid. Because the games just have the Master Emerald float the island, so no amount of damage to the island, which looks perfectly undamaged here, would justify that magical spell not working. So to mess this up, you not only have to be contradicting the rules of Fleetway, but the games as well, when they're the main continuity, so how would you not be familiar with them? Compare this to STC Online. The instant the island resurfaced, it was back to flying and was perfectly fine, which was less depressing. It's not interesting to make Angel Island just a regular island. It makes it generic and boring. You know how many regular islands there are? Then we see Metal Sonic spying on Sonic from behind, right as Knuckles is still talking to him about the island. You know, this doesn't make sense in the context of STC either, because after the Metalics were defeated, Grimer was talking to Robotnik as if Metal Knuckles would be the next step, because they'd be more loyal. So he'd have no reason whatsoever to make a Metal Sonic again that wasn't going to shapeshift and ruin Sonic's reputation while it was at it. So is this Robotnik making this thing and totally failing to learn his lesson from last time? It's interesting to read, but it's also stupid. Then we see Tails is playing at Flicky Island at lunch when it's raining out, and Tails looks at a Dracon mural and takes a picture of one showing all the emeralds, and plans to have Kintoboard cross-reference it with what the others find. I have a question. Why didn't the advanced civilizations of the past just write down their history in history books like normal people, instead of making murals like pre-literate societies or Egyptians? It's even stupider that the Dracons would do this, since they're futuristic aliens that tried to invade another planet. They wouldn't make a mural, and they'd have no reason to leave behind any historical accounts because it's not their planet. Even if they did, by accident, it'd just be written in their language. Oh wait, the Dracon who became Chaos somehow spoke the same language as Sonic and the ancient Echidnas. So never mind. Then Sonic calls Tails on his phone, and Tails tells him that there's nothing in Robotnik's base but rusty badniks. So he thinks he cleared out a long time ago. Sonic decides to head over to Aquatic Ruin and make sure the search is done right. Tails shows resentment of Sonic, wishing he'd say thanks for once, and then he gets pinned to the wall and captured in one panel by some Gamma robots, because SA won. And that's when he runs into Robotnik. I guess it does make sense that he was a wimp there, because he was completely caught by surprise, but Robotnik talked to him before this. So he should have instantly realized who he was, and started moving quickly by the middle of his sentence. He should have dodged these things, he had plenty of time to react. But apparently I'm supposed to believe he didn't bother turning his head until after Robotnik's sentence was done. After all of his solo ventures, suddenly he's turned into AOSCH Tails, where all he can do against Robotnik is get effortlessly kidnapped. Can this be over already? No, I'm just in the middle of it. Eggman says that he came here to collect an old piece of technology he left behind, and wonders if he should do the smart thing and kill Tails, since it upset him about letting another one of his teammates die. But of course, since that'd be too dark and totally waste Tails as a character, he decides not to kill him because of meta logic, making himself look like a total idiot. Instead, he tells Tails to carry a message for Sonic that he'll never give up. I'm pretty sure Sonic already knows that. He doesn't need to keep him alive. He can just send a message box to him, like in Sonic X. This doesn't make him intimidating, it makes him an unbelievable moron. I don't think comic continuations can work with just one measly person doing the project with no one editing it. Archie Sonic Online and STC Online are a group effort just like the original comics, so naturally they're much better than this. Then Eggman reveals that, conveniently, Tails' restraints are made of the Megatol ally left over from Short Fuse's armor, which was made years ago, in a completely different base, back when Eggman was ruling the world, and you'd think Eggman would have used up such a valuable indestructible metal by now. Again, it contradicts canon, multiple times in the first issue, somehow not buying that this is a superior project. Then Eggman brags that his new Gamma robots are better than his old ones, so Tails only survived by his whim. Yeah, his stupid whim. Then at night, Sonic heads to Aquatic Ruin. Wait, he has super speed. Why would it take him hours to decide to go to Aquatic Ruin and go there in a second, when he planned on going here during the day? Amy even lampshades this, so there better be a proper explanation. Art is worthless for making an enjoyable story. I don't care about how good it looks if the writing is stupid. If anything, that annoys me more because it looks good and isn't. Like the Death Egg madness. Sonic's excuse is that a news crew wanted to put the cameras for him. So am I expected to believe a photo op would last like 6 hours? And that the impatient, antisocial Fleetway Sonic would put up with it for that long? Amy says that she brought an expert along to help her search the ruins, because apparently, Ebony knows more about ancient cultures than she does. That's never even been implied in canon. In a well-written story I could take seriously, like if this was STC Online, I'd compliment this for giving some depth to her character, making her good at something unexpected. Developing on her. Like if it turned out Lightning Lynx could play chess. But instead this is just another way that the comic has no respect for being consistent to continuity, so it just feels like I made something up as an arbitrary excuse for Ebony being here. And Sonic's just as annoyed with it as I am. Out of complete nowhere, Amy tells Sonic that no one could replace Johnny. So I was expected to believe he was mad at her for that reason. Anyways, after wasting a few panels, Sonic finally calls her out on trusting Supersonic. And Ebony just says that it was her plan to merge him with Super in the first place. Yeah, at the last minute. And it should have been obvious to him that it was her plan. But instead, Sonic's made to look like a complete idiot, when Fleetway Sonic is actually surprisingly smart compared to the other Sonics. So he's made to look like an idiot, and that's the writer's idea of making Ebony smart and having a brilliant response to him. An actually natural reaction would be if Ebony told him about all the good times she had with Super that proved he was a considerate person back then. Instead, she tells him something that everyone should already know. Ebony at least acknowledges that archaeologists have gone over this place many times, but then she goes on to expect us to believe that there's still secrets hidden here, that only a magi can tell. Why can't she just say mage? The word magi came out of complete nowhere, once again having no respect for the actual canon. Out of complete nowhere, she shows them an ancient artifact that's a cistern of the thoughts, emotions, and lore of its creators. And contained inside the orb out of nowhere is a living, interactable record of knowledge. And out of nowhere again, she decides that this one is all hers, even though she's been portrayed as nothing but a good, compassionate person before. Again, it's an alternate universe. So, is Shadow supposed to be in this thing? I just had that thought. This thing came out of nowhere. Why would the Dracons ever leave this here when this isn't their planet, and they have no respect for the people who live here? They'd have no reason to leave behind any historical records here, as I mentioned before. She says that if she can somehow sample this device's records, she could find out what exactly happened during the Great War from a first-person perspective. The perspective of who? Sonic snarks that this is boring. And Ebony should be saying, all I want to know is. She asks what happened to the echidnas back in the past. It'd be nice to learn about that, but if it's in this comic, it's not going to be canon anyways. So what's the point? At least Nigel Kitching wrote a few of the stories in STC Online. And it turns out Metal Sonic had followed Sonic here. I mean, if he was already made by this point, shortly after the SA1 arc, then why wasn't he used in that arc? Because he wasn't supposed to exist at this point. That's why. It'd be too predictable and grimdark if the answer to what happened to the echidnas was literally just Chaos killed them all because that happened in a video game. Didn't everyone think that was too dark anyways? A genocide in a Sonic game. You know, for kids. So I'm trusting that this won't be the answer to Ebony's inquiry because that'd be so stupidly predictable to the point where it'd have no point in being written. It wouldn't feel like it filled in the mystery. It'd just show a lack of effort. I mean, how could Chaos have killed all the echidnas at once when we didn't exactly see women and children and babies rushing up to it? We just saw warriors. That's it. And Chaos was sealed away before he could kill anyone. And that's how it was in the present, so Robotnik could find it in the first place. It has to be, otherwise he'd have never stopped wreaking havoc. Sonic dodges the attack from Metal Sonic. Amy lampshades that she thought all the Metalics were destroyed, and thus why the hell does this one exist? And then it hits her with a laser, which looks like it even went through her. So I'm not sure how she's expected to survive that. But I guess she will because it'd be ridiculously dark otherwise. Metal Sonic insists that he's not a Metalix. Huh? So that's because he's brand new, right? I can't fucking stand the way Metal's text looks, especially since you can only zoom in the page so much, when you used to be able to zoom in these pages twice. It's impossible to read his text without having your face right up close to the computer monitor actively struggling to read it. Metal Sonic says that he's the template for all the Metal Sonics. The original model that we've never seen before. And I'm expected to believe he was never used against Sonic before and defeated in all that time? That the Chaotix never found him when they were storming the Metalix base in the Special Zone? How many continuity errors have been in this one issue alone? This is like Ian Flynn territory. So at this point, the comic goes back to where it left off for the first few pages. So this is how Metal Sonic started fighting Sonic. That's a disappointing explanation. Seriously, why would Grimer need a robot to be the original template for the Metalix? Logic would dictate that Sonic would be the original template for them. You know, their organic template. Also, why would this Metal Sonic be superior to the other Metal Sonics in every way? Wouldn't it be used then? Wouldn't it be identical to them? Is this supposed to be like the games' Metal Sonic asserting its superiority over STC? It grabs Sonic by the legs, and as I expected, Amy's perfectly fine and alive with no attempt at an explanation for why. We're not told that Ebony used her magic to protect her or bring her back from the dead. She didn't know that Metal Sonic was going to show up to attack her. Normally, I'd say she survived because she had rings, but this writing is so stupid that I don't care about giving the benefit of the doubt this time. I'm sure that if the writer really intended for that to be the explanation, we would have been told that in the story and saw rings scatter from her. But we didn't see any of that. We see Metal Sonic drop Sonic off of a cliff that's right over a waterfall. Oh, I should have known he'd go super. That's what happens every time he's put in a guaranteed death situation. And there's no other way he could have survived it. Now, if logic existed in this story, then the very next page would have him instantly kill Metal Sonic effortlessly. But you'd think Supersonic would instantly ram through any robot at Sonic speed as a spinning buzzsaw and effortlessly win. Maybe this robot's made out of ridiculously indestructible metal like Megatol, but we're not told that. He has to be made of some great metal for Sonic to not easily defeat it with a spin dash at Sonic speed in one hit, but we're not told that. He spin dashes at the back of the robot, who says he's got severe damage sustained and his power core has been compromised. And Supersonic's on fire the whole time, which he's never actually been in the canon comic. So once again, he's just making things up. So claiming it's a continuation of something canon just makes it confusing. Apparently, the Black Shield is able to block literally anything, since it blocks Supersonic's laser just fine. And in fact, the robot even says that mission's complete for some reason, as if his actual mission was to absorb his power. And yet he doesn't immediately go super himself. Since his plan didn't require Ebony and Amy to be there, why didn't he go attack Sonic when Sonic was talking to Knuckles? He says he's engaging his emergency particle shunt, so he teleported away? That's what Super's going on about. He complains, "Damn it, I need something to destroy." That's the most realistic and believable dialogue Fleetweed Supersonic's ever had. It's definitely better than him saying destroy over and over again, or roaring. He plans to destroy Amy Rose because she's the last person he interacted with before he turned super. But you'd think it'd be Ebony he'd go after since she was also interacting with him, and he hated her. Plus, I'm guessing it'll make no sense that Amy will survive Supersonic going after her. It was just as stupid last time. It's good for the tension, but then you get cynical again and realize it's artificial. After he grabs Amy by the neck, it turns out Ebony's still right with her, so she blasts him with a blue beam, saying that she had promised she'd find a way to help him. So will this make him turn good in one hit? I guess it makes sense that since Ebony's a mage with no established limits on her powers, she could just make a spell to make Supersonic turn good. And it was weird that in all of STC Online, she couldn't do that. It's still new powers as the plot demands though, which is one of the bad writing tropes. If she's got no limits to her powers, why didn't she cast a takedown Robotnik spell? So she has to have some limits. Supersonic's supposed to be invincible, and thus you'd think no spell would affect his body. Altering his brain to make him good would include that. And of course, it's confusing that in all the time that Ebony was saying that she promised she'd find a way to help him, and was telling him to let Amy go, Supersonic never killed Amy or even injured her, and just politely waited for her to finish talking. Though it makes sense if you go with the idea that he's a sadist and was busy strangling Amy. So he was enjoying that and wanted to drag out as long as he could. That's the only way him not immediately killing all his enemies can make sense. Super lets go of Amy and some grey smoke comes out of him, and he acts like he's good now, and says that he can't focus and asks where he is. She says she had to enact the backup plan, and he can't remember since it's all a blur in his mind. She says that's the drawback of the nonsensically named spell she used. Once again, that contradicts canon, because the last time she had a spell named like that, I think it was the Globe of Enrock. And at least it had a real word in its title, Globe, instead of just the nonsense of nonsense. And Super's getting back some blue in his fur, implying that he should be turning back into Sonic anyways. On the one hand, Ebony finally restoring the good Supersonic and getting her old friend back feels like it'd be a satisfying resolution to a plot thread that's been left dangling for a while. So I'm looking forward to that. But on the other hand, Sonic having an evil super form all the time was part of Sonic the Comic's unique identity, and even when he lost it, the comic was still unique because Super was separate from him and he couldn't go Super. So there was still a unique twist. Restoring the good Super Sonic separate from Sonic would be a repeat of that plot point, but still, when it comes to Sonic himself, it just makes him more boring and less unique to Fleetway Sonic because he doesn't have an evil super form, just like in the games. And he can't go Super whenever he wants just because his life is in danger, just like in the games. So it's making things more like the games for resolving a plot thread, like in Archie. Not all characters have to succeed in their goals. A character succeeding in a goal is wrapping up a plot thread, but not all plot threads have to be wrapped up, just most of them. For example, Eggman's goal is to kill Sonic, but that's not a plot thread anyone would want to be wrapped up by him succeeding. Ebony hugs him, and he says that Sonic's coming back, and she says that she'll find a way for them to exist separately again. Things could go either way here. Super could get separated from him, or it could just return to being Sonic. Oh, he's turning back to normal. So this was foreshadowed just as much, but let me get this straight. She has a convenient spell that can restore Super to his good self, but she doesn't also have a convenient spell to separate the two hedgehogs, even though she can merge the two of them just fine, which is the reverse of that. Yeah, that makes perfect sense. Not. Suddenly now her powers have limits. So much for a happy ending. Well, at least we get to keep the concept of Sonic having an evil super form, right? Unless it'll stay good. Sonic then returns to normal and asks amusingly why he's being hugged. I think that was the only really charming line in this whole comic. The only real attempt at humor. I'm glad that we cut ahead in time instead of seeing the characters' reactions to Sonic saying that. It leads it to the imagination. We cut to a few hours later back in the Emerald Hill base, where Kintabor says that he's glad Tails is unharmed, but they have a problem. Sonic says, "No, really?" I love that sarcasm from him at someone stating the obvious. That always has it coming. Kintabor says that the Gamma robots with Robotnik were the ones that he designed. And then he says that what he means is that the original Kintabor designed them. And they're scouting droids he made when he first arrived on Mobius. It's good that he has the slip-up. It takes advantage of his confusion over the fact that he's a digital copy of Kintabor who used to be him. And therefore he remembers his life as his own. The problem is, this seems to create a continuity error as well. If these Gamma robots existed for such a long time, how the hell did Robotnik take so long to find them? Why wasn't he using them since the minute he turned evil? Oh, then Kintabor says that the original Kintabor had disassembled Beta and Gamma after he came to Emerald Hill Zone to set up his lab and rock machine. I guess because they outlived their usefulness to him? Because he could just go look up on the internet what the planet was like. Didn't Kintabor invent the internet for Mobius? So he just did that. Tails says that must have been over a decade ago. No, it wasn't. He looked the same age when he first met Robotnik as he is now. And so did Tails, who he met shortly after Kintabor turned evil. If Kintabor turned evil 10 years ago, that would make Sonic like 25 years old. Tails actually asks how Robotnik got a hold of Gamma Beta's designs when it's been so long. And of course Kintabor doesn't know the answer, but I'm hoping the writer does because that's a plot hole. And a continuity error because he should have found those designs way earlier then. Also, a hold isn't one word. I think I was taught that back in kindergarten. Well, it was in something anyways. Sonic's still worried about Metal Sonic, and Kintabor tells him that he has to relax because he might turn super again. Sonic looks depressed for once, showing actual depths instead of just being an impatient jerk or idiot like he's always been this comic so far. So that's impressive, he's making me feel bad for him. He says, "Easy for you to say." Then out of complete nowhere, it turns out Chaos the Fish is being kept in a pocket of green water by a Dracon that he used to serve, who apparently hadn't left him to die when we clearly saw all the Dracons who were there left him to die. So that's another continuity error. It's so annoying that he's in the shadow. Chaos says that he had only saved him for his own purposes. As I'm wondering why the hell he's not with Big the Cat, which was clearly what was foreshadowed in Sonic the Comic since he landed in the water right next to him. How could this guy have saved him? We didn't see him near Big the Cat. It turns out this guy's Finitevus. Oh, I mean Zachary. It's so hard not to call him Finitevus after a long time because he's an evil white Kid too. It doesn't matter that Zachary came first, because Archie is the more famous comic, so sadly it's the more important one. But Zachary wasn't even with Chaos when he turned into Chaos. Anyways, he says that Chaos's goal of mere destruction is boringly pedestrian, when I thought that was Zachary's goal. Zachary explains that the only reason he sent out Metal Sonic was to get a close-up scan of Supersonic in action. So now he has the data to complete his project. Let me guess, it's a Metal Overlord project. To have him turn super like in Sonic Heroes and rip off the games. So why didn't he do it already? Why didn't he turn super in front of Sonic the minute he scanned his data? Or does Zachary want to make a Supersonic of his own? That makes sense too. Would that be Shadow? It makes no sense that Zachary got a hold of Chaos. It's not explained that he bought him off Big the Cat. Why would he ever meet Big? Why would Big agree to give up a fish he got? Did he offer him $1 million? Hold him at gunpoint? How would he ever know where Chaos was and go to find him? Why would he ever bother with Chaos? Oh right, I guess because he wants to return him to his well-known powerful self for his own purposes. This issue was by Okida, or Okida, whatever, and was about Metal Sonic fighting Sonic having the upper hand the whole time, for the purpose of making him turn super so we can scan his data for Zachary for his revenge plot. Somehow, Porker resurfaces the floating island from the ocean in one measly panel with a confusing do-anything device. That's totally better, right guys? Let's not base a whole plot around resolving an important plot thread. And Ebony finds a very conveniently existing artifact that could tell the heroes what happened to the echidnas, which was left behind by the Dracons for no reason at all. But she doesn't get the chance to use it yet, because she finds it so conveniently out of nowhere, and there's no reason it should exist. That'd be a very anticlimactic and overly easy way for the heroes to get their answers. But I take that way over nothing, like STC Online had. And Tails does nothing useful as he's effortlessly captured by Robotnik with plenty of time to react, just for him to leave his base without killing him like a complete idiot. The biggest problem with this comic is all the continuity errors. It tries to be a continuation of its own, but much to my shock, it does so by trying to replace STC Online, when I always assumed it'd be trying to continue from where it left off. What kind of Sonic the Comic fan would refuse to acknowledge STC Online, after all of its positive reception? Because, oh, it's not canon, just to make his own one, when the exact same dismissal could be applied, and even worse. This doesn't care about consistency with canon at all, which is a big problem when it's calling itself a continuation. Chaos was somehow picked up by Zachary, even though he was clearly with Big the last time we saw him in Sonic the Comic. It'll apparently take months to get the floating island floating again, because just putting the Chaos Emeralds in its chamber again to float it would be too simple and logical. Ebony's powerful enough to make Super Sonic good, but somehow not powerful enough to separate him from Sonic whenever she wants. Even though she can merge the two just fine, so if she can do one, why can't she do the reverse and reverse her own spell? It's an interesting story, but it's way too confusing and frustrating because it doesn't care about being a proper continuation. Even though it insists on taking place after the original Sonic the Comic ended, but before STC Online. If you're just gonna make things up and not care about consistency to the canon, then there's no point whatsoever making a continuation instead of just standalone episodic stories that don't try to resolve plot threads from STC and don't have to take place in an earlier time period of it. I always assumed it'd be a continuation of STC Online because that was common sense, but I guess not. I'm interested to see how this Metal Sonic and Chaos thing pans out, but I can't take it seriously anymore. STC Online had more credibility right from the start. It even started out by using unused concepts from the original comic. Sonic meeting an underwater alien race, and Zachary forming the Syndicate with an echidna criminal woken up from sleep. And Big was with Chaos just like he was last time.